Hello again, and welcome to this edition of Top of Mind Florida. I'm Michael Williams.
And I'm Brian Crowley.
Who doesn't love sea turtles?
I love sea turtles.
So do I. And
I can remember as a little kid, I was living in West Palm Beach, and I was near St. Mary's Hospital, which was then just a Catholic hospital. And there was this big wooded area next to St. Mary's, a wooded area. Can you believe that? And me and a buddy of mine, we found a giant gopher tortoise.
There you go.
I think we were supposed to leave it alone, but we carried it around for a little while.
Back in the day. Andy Dehart is suddenly having he's like, what? We're with the president and CEO of Loggerhead Marinelife Center, Andy Dehart. Thanks for being with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
And it is true. So many of us love sea turtles, and they're such a barometer of the health of our overall environment. We appreciate you joining us. You just concluded another successful nesting season. Frame, for people who don't know, and I don't think it's a lot who don't know about what you all do, but Frame Loggerhead Marinelife Center, we attract an audience across Florida and even some around the nation. Tell us a little about who you are, what you all are doing, and where you are right now.
Sure. Loggerhead Marinelife Center is located in Juno Beach, right on the ocean on US Highway 1. And we've been around for over 40 years, since 1983. We were founded by this visionary woman named Eleanor Fletcher. Moved down here from the Northeast, like so many people do, fell in love with what was happening on the beach. She was just mesmerized by turtle nesting season. So turtle nesting season goes from March 1st to October 31st. So we just concluded nesting season, although there's still some nests that'll hatch out over the next couple of weeks. Right. But so she had this vision of a free access facility. It started in the upstairs of her and her husband's real estate office as the Juno Beach Children's Museum. It then transferred into Loggerhead Park. I think the first iteration was a double wide trailer and some kiddie pools. She got one of the first research permits and rehabilitation permits for sea turtles, which are endangered species. So it really evolved from there. And over those 43 years, we've grown. We had a big campus expansion in 2007. Yeah. And then more recently in 2022, we doubled the size of Loggerhead Marinelife Center. We went from 8 sea turtle hospital tanks to 26 sea turtle hospital tanks. So we have 4 main focus areas that we look at, and that's sea turtle rehabilitation, so sick and injured sea turtles, rehabilitate them, get them back to health, and then treat them and street them, and out they go back to the ocean. That's one of the best things we do. We also have sea turtle research that goes on from that entire March 1st through Halloween. We have teams on the beach looking at nesting activity, what species are coming, are they repeats? We know that sea turtles come back to roughly the same beaches within about a 50 to 100 mile stretch every year. And then we have marine conservation. So we're looking at human impacts on sea turtles, so plastic reduction, beach cleanups, but then we're also looking now at habitat restoration, coral reefs, mangroves, seagrass beds. And then the last part of it really was Eleanor's pride and joy, and that's our education programs. So we have a lot of education programs on campus, and then we also teach out in aftercare programs in Palm Beach public school system, primarily in Title I school areas. And then we've done this with an amazing recipe that has all been, we do this while being a free to the public, open 363 days a year attraction. And for the last 2 years in a row, we've been awarded USA Today's best free attraction in the United States. So we've beat Golden Gate Bridge, Central Park, Smoky Mountain National Park. So I'm incredibly proud of being at the helm at such an amazing organization with a great legacy here in Palm Beach.
Yeah, it's a very impressive facility, and if anybody hasn't been there, I've been fortunate enough to have gone a couple of times. It's a wonderful place to go to, and you can learn a lot. And it helps you connect to nature. It helps you connect to what Florida originally was all about. It wasn't all about 30-story condos.
Amen to that. Talk about that. Are we the epicenter of sea turtle nesting? Talk about the scope of how many sea turtles nest here. And we're talking leatherbacks, loggerhead, green turtles. Talk about the scope, about the challenges they face. Give us a sense of that from that environmental perspective, especially, as Brian said, when they're competing against a beach scene that, since your childhood here, Brian, has sprouted condominiums up and down the Florida coastline.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we see 3 species here in Florida that nest here, but we also have other species like Kemp's Ridleys that occupy the reefs up north. And we have hawksbills that don't nest here in Florida, but do live on our reefs here. But the 3 species that nest on our beaches are leatherbacks, loggerheads, and greens. And they kind of come in that order. So the beginning of the season is leatherbacks, that transitions out to the loggerheads, then the greens. So this year was our 3rd highest nesting on record, over 20,000 nests. So Loggerhead Marinelife Center monitors 9.5, close to 10 miles of beach right behind our center. south to the MacArthur State Park, and then up to Tequesta. So we monitor that 10 miles of beach, and we had our third highest on record. Our stretch of beach that encompasses Jupiter Inlet down south to MacArthur State Park is the busiest nesting beach in the entire state. So although we're about 1% of the landmass of the circumference of the state of Florida, we see 10% of the nesting turtles.
Why is that?
We don't know for sure. We think partially that's because we're the closest that Florida comes to the Gulf Stream. Okay. So we think that plays some role in it. There's the inlets all over, the inlet down by Blue Heron Bridge, and then we also have the Jupiter Inlet, which plays some role in it as well. So what I think is important to note, though, is the 40 years that Loggerhead's been open has seen a lot of change. So when Eleanor started, turtles were in dire need of protection and help. And a couple of things that happened were we protected sea turtles through the Endangered Species Act, and it was also protected through IUCN, an international regulatory organization. And also, there was a lot of pressure on fishermen to number one, stop consumption of turtles and eggs. I remember going back to the Keys when I was a kid in the early 70s, and you could get turtle soup at some of the restaurants, right? And that was not uncommon throughout the Caribbean. So they stopped the use of turtles as food and harvested the eggs for food as well. And they also were using turtles for jewelry, sunglasses. And then the other big change was they put turtle excluder devices called TEDs on commercial trawling. And that allowed for a turtle that was trapped in a net that was being towed through the water to pop out of that hatch. Right. So they could still fish in that same way, but created a safe way. So now, actually, just recently in the last month, green turtles have actually been delisted off the IUCN Red List from endangered to species of least concern, meaning we still need to watch them. But over the course of the 40 years that Loggerhead has existed, a lot of our education, a lot of our research data has gone to the state organizations, the federal organizations, and we are seeing an improvement in turtle populations across the board.
What about leatherbacks and loggerheads? Where are they on the list?
Loggerheads are going up pretty substantially, and leatherbacks are seeing, at least in Florida, not around the world, but leatherbacks are seeing a bump on the increase, which is great to see. But I think it's important to understand that the United States has always led the way in species preservation and protection. So what's happening here usually is the first sign of success, but we do know that there's areas in the Caribbean where unlawful harvest of eggs happens, and same thing, there's a lot more bycatch in other areas, less developed parts of the world. But signs are promising, but we have to keep the pressure on because this is an incredibly valuable species for the whole ocean ecosystem.
So as these turtles end their vacation time in Palm Beach County and the Jupiter area in particular, where do they go from there?
That's a fantastic question. So everybody thinks that every turtle we release from our hospital gets a satellite tag, and we can follow every one of. So, we don't satellite tag 20,000 turtles. So we do satellite tag a number of different turtles, and then we've focused our efforts first on the leatherbacks because they were the most concern. For the last 3 years, we've been satellite tagging some loggerheads. That's led to some really interesting studies. And then now we're starting to satellite tag the greens. But a satellite tag is $7,500 a piece. Mm-hmm. So this is something expensive. It's like your most expensive gaming computer that you just pop right on the turtle shell and say goodbye. Right? Yeah. So what's cool, each species is different. So the leatherbacks uniquely kind of head way north, and we've had some satellite tag leatherbacks.
So they're New Yorkers?
No. Some of them are eating poutine and maple syrup up in Canada.
Wow.
So
far they range up into
we've had a number of leatherbacks go up into the Gulf of St. Lawrence, off Quebec. So leatherbacks eat almost exclusively jellies. Most people call them jellyfish, but they're not fish. I call them jellies.
I've had run-ins with those back in my scuba diving days.
Yeah, they sting a bit. So they eat almost exclusively jellies, and a large leatherback will eat their weight, almost 1,200 pounds, a day in jellies.
Wow.
Can you imagine that?
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
That's nuts.
So they have these flappy, skinny tissue. It's like soft tissue that look like stalactites and stalagmites in their mouth, and they take in a jelly and they'll squish all the water out of it, and they'll there's not much left after that, but that's what they'll swallow and eat.
So that trip, how long does that take to get there and get back?
It really depends. Sometimes if they're on a mission, it'll take 3 to 4 weeks. Sometimes they might mosey and enjoy some feeding ground somewhere. Now the
4 weeks to go from here to Canada.
Yeah.
off the Canadian shores.
Absolutely.
That's incredible.
So it's crazy. So one of the things that we've started to do now,
and then they cycle back in the same.
Yep, and then they'll spend kind of I don't know, it's kind of reverse to our residents.
Reverse
here.
snowbirds.
Yeah, reverse snowbirds. I don't know why you'd want to be in Halifax in December,
Well,
right?
if you love jellyfish.
Yeah, I guess if you love jellies, that works. So yeah, they'll kind of reverse snowbird, and then once it becomes more mating season, they'll start working their way back down. They'll kind of take some day trips off of New York and off of Ocean City, Maryland, and try to the feeding grounds. Yeah. Loggerheads on the opposite are a little bit different. Some of them go north and some of them go south. So their primary diet is crustaceans. So we see some of the loggerheads go north to the Chesapeake Bay area. Obviously, very rich. I'm a Baltimorean. Actually, I'm from Annapolis, Maryland. So I'm a blue crab all the way. Yeah. But the loggerheads are pretty smart. They know where the crustaceans are, and they head to Chesapeake Bay and Virginia and Maryland and Delaware. Others go down into the Caribbean, and others kind of wrap around the Panhandle and go to the west coast of Florida. What's cool with starting to do the satellite tagging for loggerheads is initially they thought a loggerhead did around 4 nests. A lot of people think that a female sea turtle only lays 1 nest a season.
I thought that. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So they'll lay, and the people thought loggerheads would lay 4 nests a season. The scientists, and our ability to do the satellite tagging has actually showed that most of the females loggerheads will lay 6 to 8 nests a season.
And how many eggs per nest? Typically.
A couple hundred. Wow. So that's actually changed the dynamics, because if you have a female loggerhead doing 4 nests, you can extrapolate how many females are in the ocean. At 6, there's actually less females than originally thought. So again, this is all going into protective measures for how many. We're helping build that baseline of how many natural, or how many loggerheads are in the ocean.
But the survival rate for those little babies is not high.
A calculated guess is about 1 in 1,000 turtles goes from hatchling to adult turtle.
Wow.
It may sound sad, but we have to understand that turtles are a vital part of the marine ecosystem.
No, it's part of nature.
They're at one point in time, they're the apex predator, eating the crabs, the jellies. At the bottom, at the beginning of their life, they're the base of the food chain. So they're both the base and the apex. I've seen photos of a mahi-mahi that a fisherman caught with like 30 baby sea turtles in it. They're vital food for seagulls and other seabirds. Even the eggs that don't hatch become vital fertilizer and infrastructure for the dunes, because the dunes and the sea oats need that refreshment of nourishment, and so it's sad to think about 1 in 1,000. It's important to calculate that as to why this is important, but they're vital to the ecosystem.
So, do any of them actually cross the ocean?
There are some species that make long journeys. In our populations of greens, loggerheads, and leatherbacks, we don't see any cross ocean. I don't believe the leatherbacks do. They do seem to be regional populations. So they don't seem to be like great white sharks that do these huge, vast. I mean, they're doing long swims,
right?
No joke about it. But they're not doing these intercontinental.
So what's
jumps.
the biggest threat?
Biggest threat will be and has been humankind. So number one is, I think we've reduced that direct hunting for turtles, but we're still having a dramatic impact. Almost every single turtle that comes into our hospital for treatment has some evidence of either plastic ingestion, plastic entanglement. It's impossible for them to kind of make that gauntlet without having an interaction, a negative interaction with plastic. Also, a lot of our patients come in with human collisions with boats, and that's either a direct strike from the hull or a scrape from a propeller. We have a campaign called Go Slow for those below. There's a lot of easy ways during nesting season. Just, I'm a boater. Right. I love being on the water. We want people to be out there, because oftentimes the people who are fishing, the people that are enjoying snorkeling or diving on the reef are the biggest ocean advocates, and we want that. We're not trying to say don't boat, but you can boat safer, and that is using polarized sunglasses during nesting season. When you're within a mile from shore, just take it down a notch and put a spotter, whether that spotter's on the side of the helm. Having a spotter beside the helm when you're in polarized sunglasses, you can see it and slow down a little bit for them to swim away.
Well, we've also dramatically increased the number of boats in
Yeah.
this area.
Yeah, we've done that, and then also
And they're bigger, and
bigger.
the engines are big, and a lot of them seem like they want to be race cars instead of boats, you know.
And I think
Has
there's a
that had
place
an
for
impact?
that, but there is a place for that. But I think the closer to shore you are, that especially in that nesting season, that first mile is really critical. I know that's where the reefs are. That's where people want to be fishing. So I think it's an advocacy campaign.
What about those who don't enjoy water sports but are competing with sea turtles along the shoreline, condo dwellers, people who like to go to the beach? What's your message to them about how we need to continue to keep space for sea turtles, and what are the threats there as we continue to encroach on shore on their habitat?
Well, the federal government and the state works very good. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission does a good job of regulating development. There's in Palm Beach County, we have Environmental Resource Management, amazing organizations that actually have sea turtle biologists that help this process. They're the enforcement arm. Palm Beach County, I think, look at all the little cities. Almost everyone has a turtle as their logo, right? Juno Beach, Jupiter,
all down the line,
all the way down. And I think what I love about Palm Beach County, coming from Miami, is this. There is a connection to nature that seems, it just seems stronger here in Palm Beach County. So I do think the residents think this is a special thing. What I would tell the residents is you're in one of the most special places on earth for one of the most magical things that happens in the environmental space. You essentially have a condo on the Serengeti. You're seeing thousands of sea turtles come in, some very endangered.
The turtle Serengeti, I've never heard it put that way.
But I mean, this truly is one of the most, and our stretch of beach is one of the most highly densely nested turtle spots for loggerheads in the world. It's probably number one. So this truly is an amazing space, but there are regulations. If you have a beachfront condo in Palm Beach County, you have to have tint on your window. If you have exterior lights, they have to be the amber bulbs.
So the turtles don't move to the light.
So when a baby turtle hatches out of the nest, they're looking for the brightest light, which should be the moon over the ocean. They do get some sense of smell, the saltwater, but a lot of them get confused. So follow those ordinances. Also, we want people to enjoy this as a magical thing, but we do see a lot of users now. They're out there with their flashlights, trying to look at turtles. We want people to give that respect. Unfortunately, a turtle doesn't have the instinct that a bison in Yellowstone does. They're not going to come slam you and headbutt you when you get too close.
That might help.
That might help, but it doesn't seem to help at Yellowstone. So
yeah, well, that's
I don't know.
true.
But I think people getting too close to these animals is dangerous.
Talk about sea turtles as a barometer of bigger environmental challenges, sea level rise, climate change, how it's impacting them, and what all of that says about their health, and vice versa. Also, coastal erosion. Palm Beach County for years has fought the fact that a lot of its shoreline is considered critically eroded. Talk about, as you come to kind of the intersection of all those threats, your advocacy for that, because it all ties in together. Give us a sense of that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly turtles, although we've seen success with the green turtle, they're facing a whole new challenge that is weather and climate-induced change. Beach erosion is one thing. We get these big storm events. I'm going to knock on wood. We haven't had
there you go.
We haven't had a direct hit this year from a hurricane, but
our thoughts certainly, by the way, go out to all those
absolutely.
in the islands who've been devastated.
Absolutely, but even when we get these grazing flybys of the hurricanes, we get this incredible beach erosion. So you might imagine, a beach that has 1,000 turtle nests, and then all that sand gets wiped out. Once the nest is flooded and overwashed, they can handle a bit of flooding as long as it floods and recedes. That'll be okay. But if it actually removes the nest and erodes the nest, those turtles are kind of essentially gone. We also know that turtles are, like, as I said, the loggerheads will do 6 nests. They'll spread those out. And we do think that's a genetic strategy to not put quite literally all your eggs in one basket, right? So they'll do down near MacArthur, they'll do Tequesta, they'll by Jupiter Inlet. So the thought is, by doing that variability, they hope to have some success. The other crazy thing, and it may not be PG, but they also have multiple male partners. So they actually will store reproductive fluid, and then they'll actually, the paternity of each nest can be multiple fathers.
Wow.
Again, a genetic trigger to have the best success.
Well, one thing that the North County area did better than a lot of Florida is Jupiter being one example. You don't have construction east of A1A.
Mm-hmm.
So you're helping to protect the shoreline more. We have this belief that we can build within inches of the ocean and everything's going to be fine.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there are regulations to how close now you can be to the dune, what's the setback. Those are all heavily enforced and heavily regulated. I think North Palm Beach County, Juno Beach, Jupiter, Tequesta has done a great job of preserving natural spaces just north of Loggerhead. We've got that amazing preserve. There's the Karen Marcus Preserve just about a mile further north. To get back to kind of the question, we do know the ocean is hotter than it's ever been. I mean, there's no evidence that says anything contrary. The ocean is hitting peak temperatures that have never existed before. Just this year, we've seen 2 species of coral, the elkhorn and staghorn coral, go functionally extinct in the state of Florida. I mean, this is not politics. This is not red versus blue. The reality is the ocean is hotter than it's ever been. Hands down. We've functionally lost now 3 species of coral in the state of Florida because of that. So when the water temperatures get too high, all coral, which is an animal, not a plant, has an algae that lives within it. When it gets too hot, it excludes those algae out of their body, and then they can't nourish themselves, which is coral bleaching. So we're seeing that. So we're seeing loss of reef habitat. We have seagrass beds that are diminished, and that is a human impact thing. There is too many nutrients, especially in our intercoastal areas, the Intercoastal Waterway, Biscayne Bay, and that's a lot of that is from we're still very heavily dependent on septic systems. So you have septic systems leaching out those chemicals, and that fertilizer is actually overstimulating the ecosystem, so you get algae, which makes the water darker and not as clear.
All of which impacts sea turtles and everything else.
So why should anybody care?
Why should anybody care? That's a great question. I'm a shark biologist by trade, and everybody's like, well, why would I care if there's no more sharks in the world? Isn't that a better environment? Sea turtles are really a bastion, an indicator of what's happening to the planet. So as sea turtles thrive because they're in a healthy ecosystem, the fisheries are thriving, the oysters, the scallops, the mussels, the crabs. I think people want to always have Florida would be not Florida if it didn't have the seafood that we have or the fishing. There's a multi-billion-dollar industry in the marine space, whether you're a commercial fishing captain, whether you're a recreational dive captain, whether you come down here to go to the beach. We spend a lot of money in Palm Beach County to renourish beaches, which is an important process because as those beaches erode, we need to put the sand back. So beach renourishment is a huge expense here in Palm Beach County, and it needs to be. But you lose the tourism, you lose the economy, you lose the revenue if the ocean ecosystem, not to mention its own inherent, value.
We talk about why we care, but we have this human conceit that somehow we're doing nature a favor. We can't live without it. We seem to be very, very short-sighted about that.
Absolutely. The ocean provides an amazing amount of oxygen that we breathe because of the way corals operate, because of the way coral reefs function. That actually generates oxygen.
Final message that you'd want to have as your takeaway for our audience about sea turtles, where you are. You've spoken eloquently about it, but final thoughts final top of mind thought, as we put it here on this podcast.
Well, I mean, we just kind of talked about a gloom and doom scenario. I think one of the things I absolutely love about Loggerhead Marinelife Center is it's a center of hope. Yeah. And I think it's too easy. My kids get, climate fatigue. Yeah. They get, just the world is inundated with bad stories. It is. And I think one of the things that's amazing, and I think the green turtle tells that story, when humans get invested and humans care. I mean, everybody in the nonprofit space says I cheat because I get to use baby sea turtles to raise money, right? And we do. But there's very few people in the state of Florida that don't either love a sea turtle, a dolphin, a manatee, or a shark. Yep. I mean, you get those 4. Those are the 4 heavy hitters. But it's using what we have, and I think that's what really makes Loggerhead very unique in that we're doing rehabilitation. So a person can come into Loggerhead, they can see a turtle that just had a boat strike or just got entangled with fishing line. If they come back, they'll see that progress, and then hopefully they get invited to a public beach release. And those are amazing. We just did one yesterday. We have 1,000 people out on the beach getting to watch the end of their journey, coming out. They get to walk back down the ocean and go back to the ocean. But I think having those stories of hope is critical, because if we are connected and we are concerned and you vote that way, you live that way, we can make a difference. And again, I can't say that I live a totally, green life. I drive a car. I don't bike to work, but I do think if people can make one small change, say, hey, I'm not going to fertilize my yard during the rainy season because I know that's going to go off into the canals, or that's going to go into the ocean. I'm not going to use plastic bags anymore. I'm going to use aluminum foil and recycle it. Any small thing that you can make, bring your bags to the shopping store. I know it's annoying. I forget them in the car half the time. I get to my car, I'm like, oh man, I got to go get my bags. It is annoying, but if people can make one small change, one really small change, you master that. And once you've mastered that, take on the next one. But I think too many people think, well, I got to live this whole life that doesn't jive with my reality. Just take small changes at a time. And by the time you know it, you've mastered 5 or 6 things and you're making an impact. I'm
smiling because my daughter got to see that sea turtle release yesterday. There's nothing like it. Thank you for ending on a very positive note. Thanks for the work Loggerhead's doing.
Absolutely. And
we'll certainly have you back as a guest. We appreciate you being with us.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Absolute pleasure.
Well, that was a great conversation.
It was. And I smiled at the beginning about you and Gopher Tortoises, but it does remind you just the connectivity we have with this place we call home, and how we've changed it, but still have a chance to preserve it.
I think one of the errors we may make in education is, in starting in grammar school, is maybe we don't teach enough about the environment. And I don't mean preaching about climate change and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about teaching the basics, like turtles. We're getting ready to have a bear hunt in December in Florida, and it sort of begs the question: we don't have that many bears in this state. Why are we hunting them? Are we hunting them because they're a threat? I don't know too many humans that have been killed by bears in Florida, and is that our way of managing the environment? And I don't waste a lot of time longing for the Florida of my youth. It's gone, but we need to do a better job of sort of protecting what we have now.
Well, I said it, but I know that you're an advocate, as I am, of protecting the Florida of the present and trying to preserve it, and do what we can to sustain, whether it's sea turtles or the like, for the future. It's not all here just for us. Maybe you and I should start leading the field trips for more youngsters to get out and actually be in touch with nature.
Well, one positive,
you'd be a good field trip leader.
One positive sign was when there was this move to build golf courses and hotels on state parks.
Yep.
There was an outrage about that, and the proponents of that backed off of it and are leaving the state parks alone. A lot of people treasure going to these parks, and we need to have more places where people can go and just be comfortable, just enjoy nature, enjoy taking a walk, somewhere, or riding a bike somewhere, instead of being in the middle of I-95 or the interstate the whole time.
I know you and I talk off camera all the time as good friends about you miss, in many ways, the Florida of your youth, the generations before you, in terms of their connection with nature. Could say they miss what it had become by the time you were a little boy. But it doesn't mean we can't, somewhere in that arc and in that change and in modernizing our state and crowding it with 22 million people, not say, as you said, stop, this far, no farther. How do we turn the clock back? How do we do more to preserve? That's what I hear you saying.
Well, one of the things that I don't spend a lot of time worrying about, the Florida of my youth. What I'm more interested in is what's the Florida...
Except when it comes to traffic.
Traffic. What I'm more interested in is what's Florida going to look like in the next 25 years?
Exactly.
So what's one of the biggest complaints we hear, no matter where you live in the state? Traffic. So we're bragging about that if Mondami wins in New York, New Yorkers are going to flock to Florida. Well, I hate to break to you, since the 60s,
right.
New Yorkers
it's pretty big
flocking to Florida. But what if we added another 1 million or 2 million people to the state, but we haven't widened the roads? We haven't improved mass transit, which that is our history.
Haven't maintained our beaches, haven't done all of that.
Everybody you talk to, no matter where they live in Florida, they complain about how bad the roads have become. So what's the plan for the next 25 years? There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of legislative leaders and, who go, oh man, we really need to do something about that. Well, okay, fine. Do something about it. A lot of local governments talk about how changes you need to make. Okay, fine, change it. But instead we just talk and don't take any very much action, and it's only going to get worse, as we've seen over in recent years, how bad the traffic has gotten.
From turtles to tailgaters to everything in between, it's all interrelated one way or the other. And here on Top of Mind Florida, we try and cover it all for you. Final quick thoughts, sir.
I almost got hit on I-95 on my way here. Take the back roads, don't take the interstate.
Thanks for being with us.